Hi students, welcome back to the Mr. BioBuddy YouTube channel. In the previous video we see the full board classification of pteridophytes. Click on I button to see it. In these video we see the full revision of plant kingdom. Now start form. Gymnosperms, Angiosperms and plant life cycles. Gymnosperms. The gymnosperms, gymnos equals naked, sperma equals seeds, are plants in which the ovules are not enclosed by any ovary wall and remain exposed, both before and after fertilization. These are small groups of seed plants which are represented by only 900 living species. Unlike bryophytes and pteridophytes, in gymnosperms the male and the female gametophytes do not have an independent free-living existence. They remain within the sporangia retained on the sporophytes. Habitat. These plants are mostly found in colder parts of northern hemisphere where they form extensive forests. A number of gymnosperms are now known as ornamentals, example, ginkgo, thuja, araucaria, etc. Morphology. Gymnosperms include medium-sized trees or tall trees and shrubs. The giant redwood tree sequoia is one of the forest tree up to 100 m. Species of neetum are woody climbers. The smallest gymnosperm is Zamia pygmea, which reaches a height of 25 centimeters. Many of the gymnosperms live for more than 4,000 years, e.g. pine, pinus, redwood, sequoia. External features. The plant body is sporophyte and differentiated into root, stem and leaves. Plant body. Tap roots are present for proper anchorage to heavy plant. Roots in some genera have fungal association in the form of mycorrhiza, pinus, while in some others, cycas, small specialized roots called coralloid roots are associated with N2 fixing cyanobacteria such as Anabina, nostoc, etc. The stems are branched, pinus, cedrus, or unbranched, cycas. The leaves may be simple or compound. Archegonia. The megaspore mother cell thus undergo meiotic division forming 4 megaspores, out of which one is enclosed within the megasporangium, nacellus, and develops into a multicellular female gametophyte, bearing 2 or more archegonia of female sex organs. The multicellular female gametophyte is also retained within megasporangium. Fertilization. Air current required for transport of male gametes. The male gametes are carried to the archegonia, i.e., gamete in the ovule by means of a tube called pollen tube, and discharge their contents near the mouth of the archegonia. This is called siphonogamy. Seeds. Following fertilization, zygote develops into an embryo and the ovules into seeds. The seeds contain food-laden tissue called endosperm. It lies naked or exposed. Endosperm provides nourishment for growth of seedling at the time of seed germination. Examples: cycas, pinus, ginkgo, ephedra, neetum, vaucheria, cedrus, abes, etc. Classification of gymnosperms. Gymnosperms further include 3 main classes: Cycadopsida, cycads, Coniferopsida, conifers, and Netopsida, neetum. Differences between male gametophyte of pteridophyte and gymnosperms. Male gametophyte of pteridophyte, male gametophyte of gymnosperms. A distinct male gametophyte may not be present. A distinct male gametophyte is present. It contains an antheridium. Antheridium is not present. Male gametes are flagellate. Male gametes can be flagellate or non-flagellate. Male gametes reach female gametes by swimming in water. Male gamete reach the female gamete through a pollen tube. Economic importance of gymnosperms. Seeds of Pinus gerardiana, chilgosa, are used as food after roasting. Some other edible gymnosperms plant part are endosperm of ginkgo, seed kernel of some cycas and neetum, sago grains from stems of cycas, etc. 2. Gymnosperms provide softwood for construction, plywood and paper industry. 3. Branches of gymnosperm trees are used as fuel food. Sawdust of conifers is used in making plastics and linoleum. Resin is a semi-fluid secreted by special tubes of a number of conifers. It helps in sealing female cones after pollination, scale leaves around leaf bases, and apical buds. Resin is distilled to obtain turpentine and resin. Turpentine is used for thinning paints, varnishes, etc., and resin is used for sealing joints, wool green, preparation of writing paper, oil clothes, etc. Here the Gymnosperms ends. Now start the Angiosperms. Angiosperms. Angiosperms are seed-bearing plants or flowering plants. Unlike Gymnosperms where the ovules are naked, in Angiosperms the sporophyll are organized into flowers and the seeds are produced inside fruits. There are about 250,000 species of Angiosperms in the nature. They evolved about 130 to 160 million years ago. Habitat. Angiosperm are found in wide range of habitats, from the land to up to 6,000 m in Himalayas or Antarctica and tundra, dry hot deserts, cold deserts, tropics, fresh water up to 60 degrees Celsius, underground, over other plants as parasites, saprophyte, etc. Zostera is a marine angiosperm. Plant body. These plants are sporophytic, in the form of herbs, shrubs, trees, climber creepers, etc. The smallest angiosperm is water plant Wolfia and tallest is Eucalyptus regnans, 100 man above. Primary root develops from radicle. It forms taproot system. In many angiosperms roots develop from places other than radicle, these are adventitious roots. Stem develops from plumule. Leaves. These are simple or compound. The leaves bear axillary buds which can grow into stem branches. Vascular tissues. Angiosperms have vessels and xylem. Phloem contains sieve tubes and companion cells in regard to Gymnosperms which do not have companion cells. Flowers. Flowers are the reproductive structures formed by the union of one or both types of sporophylls, microsporophylls or stamens and megasporophylls or carpels. Microsporophylls or male sex organs. Stamens are considered as the male sex organs of a flower. Each stamen has two main parts, i.e., a slender filament with an anther at the tip. An anther contains 4 microsporangia where microspore mother cells become differentiated to form 4 microspores, each developing into a pollen grain. Megasporophylls or female sex organs. Carpel or pistil is called the female sex organ of the flower. Each carpel has 3 parts, i.e., an ovary, style and stigma. A megaspore mother cell is differentiated in the nacellus and undergoes meiosis. Ultimately one functional megaspore gets enlarged and forms the female gametophyte known as embryo sac. Each cell of an embryo sac is haploid. Embryo sac. Each embryo sac contains a 3-celled for example registered apparatus consisting I of 1 egg cell and 2 synergids, 3 antipodal cells, at the I opposite end and 2 polar nuclei in the central cell. The polar nuclei eventually fuses and forms diploid secondary nucleus. Pollination. Pollen grains after dispersal from the anthers are carried by various ways such as wind, water, or by various other agencies to the stigma of the pistil. Fertilization and development of a seed. Each pollen grain germinates on the stigma forming a pollen tube that carries 2 male gametes to the embryo sac, growing through the tissues of stigma and style. One of the male gametes fuses with the egg cell to form a zygote, syngamy. The other male gamete fuses with the diploid secondary nucleus to produce the triploid primary endosperm nucleus pen. Because of the involvement of above-mentioned 2 events, it is known as double fertilization. After fertilization, synergids and antipodal cells degenerate. The zygote develops into embryo, and the primary endosperm nucleus develops into an endosperm. The ovule gradually transforms into a seed and the ovary becomes the fruit. A fruit is actually a ripened ovary. They not only protect the seed, but also help in their dispersal. Classification of angiosperms. George Bentham and Joseph Dalton Hooker presented the system of classification of angiosperm * published in Genera Plantarum, 1862-1883, which appeared in 3 volumes. This system of classification is used by most of the well-known herbaria of the world. The details of this system are not described here. Conveniently, on the basis of the number of cotyledons, angiosperm are classified in 2 broad groups, i.e., monocotyledony and dicotyledony. Economic importance of angiosperms. The angiosperms are major source of food, fibers, spices, and beverages. 2. They also provide valuable timber and medicines. 3. These also add beauty to our environment as well. Alteration of generation. Life cycle of an organism is a sequence of events that occur from birth to death of an organism. In plants, both haploid and diploid cells can divide by mitosis. This feature leads to the formation of different plant bodies, haploid and diploid. The haploid plant body produces gametes by mitosis. This plant body represents a gametophyte. After fertilization, zygote also divides by mitosis to produce a diploid saprophytic plant body. Haploid spores are produced by this plant body by meiosis. These in turn, divide by mitosis to form a haploid plant body once again. Thus, during the life cycle of any sexually reproducing plant, there is an alternation of generation between gamete-producing haploid gametophyte and spore-producing diploid saprophyte. Plant life cycles. Different plant groups and individual have different features in their life cycle. Haplontic. The dominant photosynthetic phase is a gametophyte produced by haploid spores. The gametophyte produces gametes by mitosis. The gametes fuse and produce a diploid zygote that represents sporophytic generation. There are no free-living sporophytes. Meiosis in the zygote results in formation of haploid spores. This kind of life cycle is called haplontic. Many algae such as volvox, Spirogyra and Chlamydomonas represent this pattern of life cycle. Diplontic. In this type, the diploid sporophyte is the dominant. The multicellular diploid phase is called sporophyte. The gametophytic phase is represented by the single to few-celled haploid gametophyte. This kind of life cycle is termed as diplontic. All seed-bearing plants, Gymnosperms and Angiosperms follow this pattern of life cycle. Fucus and alga is diplontic. Haplodiplontic. In this type, there are two distinct multicellular phases, diploid sporophyte and haploid gametophyte are present. Both phases are multicellular. However, they differ in their dominant phases. A dominant, independent, photosynthetic, thalloid or erect phase is represented by a haploid gametophyte. It alternates with the short-lived multicellular sporophyte totally, partially, or dependent on the gametophyte for its anchorage and nutrition. All bryophytes represent this pattern. 2. The diploid saprophyte is represented by a dominant independent photosynthetic vascular plant body. It alternates with multicellular saprophytic/autotrophic. Independent but short-lived haploid gametophyte. This pattern is called haplodiplontic life cycle. All pteridophytes demonstrate this pattern. However, most algal genera are haplontic, some of them such as Ectocarpus, Polysiphonia and Kelps are haplodiplontic. Here we end the full review.